We're all looking for the same thing, right? A good life. But what does that actually mean? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into the science and see if we can find some answers.
So we all chase this thing, but what is it really? A life of happiness? Or is it something deeper, a life of meaning? Here's the kicker. It turns out they're not the same thing at all. We all want to be happy, for sure. But is that the whole story? Today, we're going to explore what the research says about the difference and, why it really matters.
Okay, so to get to the big stuff, like happiness and meaning, we actually have to start at the very beginning. Think of it like building a house. You can't put up the walls and the roof before you lay the foundation. And for us humans, that foundation is all about our most basic, primal needs.
And it really all started right here, with this absolutely groundbreaking paper from 1943 by a guy named Abraham Maslow. Now, Maslow came up with this idea that was pretty radical back then. He said, hey, our needs are arranged in a hierarchy, like a pyramid. And what that means is, before you can even think about things like your higher purpose, you got to take care of business at the bottom first, your basic survival.
Maslow had this great term for it, a prepotent need. And it's such a powerful idea. Basically, it means that when one of those basic needs isn't met, let's say you're truly desperately hungry, nothing else matters. Seriously, forget about your dreams, your career goals, finding the one, all of that just fades into the background. Your entire world shrinks down to one single all-consuming thought, food.
I mean, this line just nails it, right? Man lives by bread alone when there is no bread. It's so true. When you've got nothing, getting that bread is everything. But, and this is the big question that really kicks off our whole journey, what happens next? What happens when your belly is full? What do we start chasing then?
Right, so once survival is handled, things get a lot more interesting and a lot more complex. We start looking for other things, like happiness. But what's really fascinating is that modern researchers have found there's this other thing we're pursuing, and it's often totally separate from happiness, and that's the search for meaning.
So is happiness the only thing left to chase? Well, this is exactly where the modern research really digs in. Psychologists got super curious and wanted to know what's the actual difference between a happy life and a meaningful one. They did this huge study to figure it out, and honestly, what they found is pretty mind-blowing.
Okay, look at this. The difference is pretty stark, isn't it? A happy life, that's all about the now. It's about feeling good, getting what you want, and trying to avoid stress. You could almost call it a taker mindset. But a meaningful life? Whoa, that's almost the opposite. It's more about being a giver. It's not just about the present. It connects your past, your present, and your future. And here's the real kicker. A meaningful life often means embracing challenges and struggle, not running away from them.
So this idea that meaning can actually come from suffering, that takes us somewhere really deep. It leads us to one of the most powerful philosophies ever developed on this topic, and it was forged in, well, the absolute worst circumstances you can possibly imagine.
Just read that for a second. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. Those are the words of Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist, and he was also a Holocaust survivor. And what he experienced, what he saw, led him to this incredible conclusion, that the main thing driving us in life isn't pleasure, it's the search for meaning.
Yeah, Frankl didn't come up with these ideas sitting in some cozy university office. His philosophy, which he called logotherapy, was forged in the concentration camps, in Auschwitz. He saw firsthand that the people who had the best chance of surviving weren't necessarily the strongest, but the ones who held on to a sense of purpose, some reason to keep living.
What's amazing is that Frankl gives us a really practical roadmap. He said there are basically 3 ways we can find meaning. First, through our work, doing something that feels significant. Second, through love, caring for another person, really connecting. And third, and maybe the most powerful of all, is through courage. And by that he meant the attitude we choose when we're faced with suffering we literally cannot avoid. That final choice, that freedom to choose how we respond, that's where he believed we can find our deepest meaning.
Okay, so we have these really powerful ideas, from psychology, from philosophy, but do they actually play out in the real world? Over a whole lifetime? Well, it just so happens there's an incredible long-term study from Harvard University that gives us the answer. 80 years. Just let that sink in for a minute. For 8 decades, a team of researchers has been following the lives of hundreds of people from when they were just teenagers all the way until they were in the 90s.
And this isn't just some quick online survey. The Harvard study of adult development is one of the longest, most in-depth studies of adult life ever. They tracked two really different groups of men, one group of Harvard graduates and another from some of Boston's poorest neighborhoods. And they collected everything. I'm talking brain scans, blood work, and hours of interviews with them and their families.
So after all that time, after mountains of data, you'd think the clearest answer for a good life would be about money, or fame, or working really hard, right? Nope. The study director said the most surprising finding, the biggest takeaway, wasn't any of that. The single most powerful predictor of a good life was the quality of our relationships.
I mean, the findings are just staggering. Get this, how satisfied you were in your relationships at age 50 was a better predictor of your physical health at age 80 than your cholesterol numbers were. Think about that. Good, close relationships literally protect our bodies and our brains as we get older. And the flip side is just as powerful. The studies showed that loneliness is as toxic to our health as smoking or alcoholism.
Wow. All right, so let's pull all this together. We've gone from basic needs to happiness versus meaning, and now to this bombshell discovery about the power of our relationships. So, what do we do with all this? How do we actually apply it to our own lives?
Well, there's this really interesting psychological idea called terror management theory. I know, it sounds super intense, but the core idea is actually pretty simple. It's that because we humans are aware that our time here is limited, that knowledge creates this deep, fundamental need to find meaning. We all want to feel like our lives mattered, that we left something behind that will outlast us.
And that drive is what leads us to create what some thinkers call an immortality project. It's our shot at creating a legacy. Now, you might hear that and think of, building a skyscraper or starting a famous company. But what that incredible 80-year Harvard study really tells us is that our most powerful legacies are often much more personal. It's the art we create, sure, but it's also the family we raise, the community we help build, the values we pass on to others through those deep connections. It's the mark we leave on the people who will remember us.
And that, really, brings us right back to you. We've seen that a truly good life seems to be built not just on happiness, but on meaning. And that meaning is often forged in struggle and found in our connections. The search isn't about finding some secret one-size-fits-all answer. It's about building your own. So, the question is, what mark will you leave on the world and on the people in it?